Hello, hello. This is Stupid Trader, and today I wanted to hunt with the Shuwu hammer, which is aesthetically my favorite weapon in the game. Unfortunately, it's a water elemental hammer, which means the target profile of the weapon is kinda ass. Thankfully, bullying apes in Monster Hunter is one of my favorite pastimes, and therefore there is a prime target for testing this hammer. After resetting my hunts for a while to try to find an investigation worth doing with a 5-star tempered monster, the one that ended up showing up was Ajarakan. I was hoping for Nudra, but I didn't get lucky enough for that. I originally thought this hunt was going to be fairly easy, but it turns out the Great Ape has some hands. This is obviously still a solo mode run, therefore no mantles, no palicos, and no environmental damage, although there's only so much I can do about monsters interfering. I will say, after all these years, please, Capcom, give me more Piscine wyverns, give me more snake wyverns, more leviathans, more fanged wyverns. I am so tired of all of the apes. I have hated them since Gen 2 when they were introduced, and I have not enjoyed them since. Please, give me less of them. I am begging you. I will say, the Jarrakan, aesthetically, is a great monster and actually has a pretty fun kit. Out of the apes, it is probably my favorite now, but that is mainly because I have a vast hatred for most of them, especially for Rajang. And so, bar is not very high. More importantly, I was away from the game over the weekend due to some personal matters and feel extremely rusty coming back. I get hit more than I feel I was before, and I'm not hitting offsets. Granted, that isn't really that much of a change from the past. Going forward, I think I really need to actually study the monster's movesets and seeing where I can hit offsets off of a monster's kit and when I need to hold the third hit from a triple attack to offset a monster to really elevate my gameplay to the next stage. Granted, I don't know how much any of this matters when I don't think I successfully roll a single roar from the Ajarakan. So I think it's just a big case of all my timings are slightly off. I feel like I'm still doing everything a bit too early, and need to shore up my timings there. For the next hunt with this hammer, I'm probably looking at doing either Nudra or Gravios, assuming I can find a tempered 5-star of either of them to target as a valid challenge for this hammer. Back to this hunt specifically, though, I find it very difficult to target Ajarakan's head. His back plate that he has going on there is very large, and it seems to extend beyond the actual graphical image. The hurt box on him seems to really get in the way on his back and protect his head very well. This problem seems to be especially amplified by the fact that most of Ajarakan's moveset seems to be very forward-focused, and so standing in front of him is a dangerous game to play, and you naturally want to get behind him where his only real threat is him hitting you with his tail or him dropping his shoulder into the ground and then sliding across, both of which can be avoided with a single roll, assuming you roll the correct direction. And here we have the first instance of a monster that's really interfering with the fight. The Guardian Rathalos is going to Do a good bit of damage to the Ajarakan here, and I don't think there's anything I could have done to really prevent it. The only thing I could have possibly done is predict the Ajarakan's run and then get ahead of it and then dung pod the Rathalos in advance, possibly. But the AI seems to be pretty quick at identifying when another monster is in the area and triggering a little fight between them. An instance, too, is immediately afterwards where these Guardians Sacred decide they're also going to get a piece of this Ajarakan, although its damage is fairly trivial, but it does get the Ajarakan's attention, which makes the fight easier for me. It also doesn't help that because I didn't dung pod the Guardian Rathalos earlier, the Guardian Rathalos chases all the way into the next zone to try to take a piece out of me and continue playing interference in the fight overall. I finally dung podded them to break them apart, but this entire chase sequence burns probably 1.5 to 2 minutes in this fight, where it could have been just me versus the Ajarakan and probably would have been more damage overall if that was the case. And here we have another instance of fights feeling very claustrophobic in the zones that we are given to fight within. This is a large creature with a very like AoE moveset, and being in this tiny ass room makes it so that this fight is more difficult than it really should be if we had space to maneuver. I do think I'm getting slightly better at wound management, in that I'm not breaking wounds with normal attacks as much anymore and getting flinches off by using the focus attacks, which kind of gives some more damage. The hammer focus attack does a good amount of damage in comparison to the rest of the hammer's kit. So on top of getting a decent amount of damage off, 1 to 2 is generally enough to get a small flinch on most creatures, which is very nice for progressing the fight and getting some free damage chip while giving yourself some space to breathe. Being a mouse and keyboard player, I think I can get my accuracy in attacks a bit higher by continuing to stay in focus mode in more of the fight, like more of a 90% of the time, and having a target not locked so I have free movement with my mouse over my camera instead of it being glued to the target. That way I can just pinpoint my hits a little bit better with the hammer. That should probably help with my head attack accuracy overall. One rant I do have is that when you offset a move that has very low knockdown, you tend to get punished immediately afterwards since the offset doesn't stagger at all. I know this is a problem of just time your offset better, but the fact that I get 0 space from offsetting a move feels really, really bad and really, really punishing. This fight overall makes me feel like I should be using earplugs instead of Counter-Strike, just because I'm getting a lot of interrupts off of the roars, and I can still keep 1 space for Counter-Strike available. This rolling attack is probably the biggest nightmare fuel of this fight for me, seeing as it was my one cart in the story mode, where I thought I had rolled far enough away from the attack and it just one-shot me, and that was enough to traumatize me for this move. And chasing monsters, the biggest time sink in this game. This is really the advocate for why you should capture pretty much everything. Just because chasing monsters around, especially if you take more than 1 chase sequence, adds minutes to your time, no matter what you tried to do. One thing I've never known is how good mounting is for runs like this. It's free damage and free wounds, but I don't know if it is better to do than just having well-timed attacks here. Sure, it's really free, but if the DPS is better by just fighting the monster on the ground, then it's probably not worth doing, but I've never actually done the math on this. I will say it does feel especially bad when you don't get the full finisher off of the mount, so that you don't have the big damage sequence at the end. Could have captured here to make this run just over 10 minutes, which would be pretty much on par with my Rathalos run. But once again, I wanted to kill the monster as opposed to capture it. It's just a little more satisfying, even if it is a lot of running around. And it's not like this run was going for like some speed run title or anything. If this was like the point in time at around the like 4 to 5 minute marker, it would be a different conversation. But with this being at 10 minutes and still like just now getting to a monster low enough to capture, it's probably just not worth doing. With the monster being low comes another chase sequence. I could flash bomb it or lure pod it, but I'm not a big fan of the slinger overall and slinger usage in general in this game. I really want to focus on just using my hammer. But when it comes to just making these fights less annoying and less of just chasing a monster down, I really need to use flash pods and lure pods to keep a monster in the zone. Especially with how far some of these zone chases tend to be. This is almost a full minute from him going from the previous zone to his resting zone in and of itself. And hey, if you've made it this far, why don't you like, subscribe? I've heard it helps, but I wouldn't really know. The fact that I'm using these jump attacks off the Sacred is kind of indicative of just being very tired of chasing this monster around. At this stage in the hunt, I've gotten really impatient and I'm just trying to get it over with at this point. Especially with this being the 4th attempt at this same hunt to have a faster time and a cleaner run. This opener should probably be a full Mighty Charge opener for the Wake Up. Would make this fight end a lot faster and it's a lot more damage off the Wake Up. So my impatience definitely made me miss out on a good bit of damage to open up this last fight sequence. But hey, offsets, when they function, are really cool. Unfortunately, I get really greedy afterwards and almost always immediately get hit. This fight ended up being a 12:31, which is pretty slow. I'm pretty happy with the hunt overall. A lot of getting hit, a lot of just messy play, but I didn't use anything really cheesy. No mantle, no Ardean weapon, no palico, no purposefully used environmental anything. So I'm pretty happy with it on that end. The run is slow, but I'm happy with what I did and what I controlled about the hunt overall. The gear at the end is just a really simple 2-piece G-Fulgur, 2-piece Gore to emphasize damage, really. The only off-meta thing really here is the hammer that was being used, and that was just purely it is my favorite hammer when it comes to how it looks, so I just really wanted to use it. Decorations wise, I should probably run more 2-piece earplugs, but I'm going to continue to use the Counter-Strike jewels just because as I get better at rolling the roars, earplugs will be less useful. I do wish there was space for brace on this build though.